Sometimes when you're driving down the road all by yourself, you begin to hear a voice that tells you need to look around, pay attention. Maybe something isn't quite right. That voice is me. It's the voice of Gord. Hey, g'day everyone. How's it going? Another episode of Voice of Gord for you. Special one today. I recorded this one a few weeks back under request from the Greater Houston Trucking Association. They wanted to have an information session for their members about the imposition of autonomous, or as they put it, driverless truck technology on the roads in Texas, as Interstate 45 is fast becoming one of the hottest proving grounds for this new technology in the United States. So myself and former guests of the show, Edward Escobar, James Year, and Will Cook, were happy to oblige. This is a pretty good presentation. We recorded it on video, and the GHTA ladies put it out on their social media and shared it around. So I let them have that, and this is the audio from it. It's pretty informative. I think people who are skeptical of these vehicles need to pay attention, because the technology that sort of undergirds them is improving and growing and getting better and better at an extremely fast rate, as explained by my colleague James Year. And I think we need to be a little bit more clear-eyed about what's going on with these trucks. And this presentation will give you a lot of that information. As you probably noticed when you looked at or downloaded this file, it's pretty big. I think we went for over 2 hours. So pack a lunch, but it's very information dense, and we took audience questions. And I think you guys, if you're paying attention to driverless technology, will really enjoy listening to this. All right. If you have any questions, if you'd like myself or my associates to do an information session for your organization, or you just want to talk about it, by all means, contact me, gordylocks@protonmail.com. My email address is always in the show notes. I'll also give you guys some links to connect with James, Edward, and Will, and the various organizations they work with, and some various other info about autonomous trucks. All right, well, let's get to it. All right, g'day everybody. Welcome to a very interesting edition of the Voice of Gord podcast. Doing a little joint project with a bunch of people here today, an information session for the Greater Houston Trucking Association, as represented today by Liz Castillo and what was your name?
Priscilla Picasso.
Priscilla Picasso. And I've brought some former guests and experts on the field of autonomous or driverless trucks, as it were, who've been on my show before. Mr. James Year, for a recent graduate, the photojournalism master's student at Syracuse University. Will Cook with America Without Drivers. And Edward Escobar with the Alliance for Independent Workers out in California, who's an expert on robotaxis. How this is going to work is we're all going to introduce ourselves so that Liz and Priscilla's guests live there in Houston and elsewhere listening online can find out who we are and what we do and what issues we explore. And then the other gentlemen will introduce themselves, and then James will begin with his presentation. So go ahead, Priscilla and Liz.
Thank you, Gordon, and welcome everyone. So we have some members here in the room with us, and we're really excited to launch Truck Tech Talks for the Greater Houston Trucking Association for our members and industry allies. And Gordon, really excited to hear you and the panel talk about autonomous trucking and, just how it's going to shape our industry going forward. And I'm really excited to have this available for our members and especially our small business owners. So, technology continues to evolve, and embracing solutions isn't just about staying ahead, it's really about staying competitive in the market. So look forward to this, and thank you everyone for joining us today. And let's get started.
Okay, so I guess I'll go first with the introductions here. So, like Gord said before, I'm James Gear. I'm a former graduate student at Syracuse University, recently graduated. As far as a background goes, I'm an Iowa farm boy that got lost on his way to college. I joined immediately after high school, joined the U.S. Air Force and hauled international freight on C-130s in Europe, Africa, and the Middle East for about 6 years. And then got a degree in sociology and just finished up the master's program, which it was a multimedia photography and design degree, but I've been focusing entirely on autonomous trucking for about the last 2 years, and I've been trying to photograph that. So yeah, so Will, you're up.
Thank you for having me on here. I'm Will Cook with America Without Drivers. I've been driving for about 34 years, hold a master driving award given to me by the American Trucking Association. I think that's important because it just shows on the autonomous, a lot of the things that autonomous say is that the driverless is going to be a lot safer. So, and I know through my training, so forth like that we can, drivers can be very safe out on the road with proper training and the proper people behind the wheel. So America Without Drivers, why it became, was our concerns of the effects of autonomous vehicles and the displacement of drivers, the liability and safety on public highways. And we just felt that there was a need for somebody to be out here bringing awareness to the public and to the drivers about the potential of the job displacement of driverless trucks and maybe some of the safety issues that will come along with the driverless trucks. So we formed America Without Drivers. As we got into it, we realized that politicians and regulators didn't really know what was going on. They were just letting them go like the wild, wild west. So we formed a boots on the ground called Truck the Vote. You go truckthevote.org. It takes you to America Without Drivers. And we started presenting stuff to senators and congressmen and kind of letting the voters know who their representatives were and trying to bring the voters, the public, and the representatives together on this issue.
Hello, my name is Edward Escobar. I'm the founder of the Alliance for Independent Workers, a Drivers Unite movement, and basically have been on the front lines against the robo-taxis, autonomous vehicles that take over. Been talking about AI, automation, self-driving tech for many years. I'm a driver myself. I populate the sector of transport of black car, limo, bus, party bus type vehicles, but also started off as Uber driver many years ago and have worked on 9 different platforms, the app-based transport economy. So basically on the front lines there, taking on technology, the big tech titans of Silicon Valley. I'm out of San Francisco. So we were on the forefront of having the permit for robo-taxis pulled for the state of California against GM Cruise. So that was a rather significant victory because we were the Davids against the Goliaths. So back to you.
All right. And lastly, my name's Gord. I host this podcast, Voice of Gord. I've been a trucker for 27 years. I'm from Canada originally. I've driven all over Canada, did 4 seasons up on the ice. As you can see back here, drove triple road trains in Western Australia, logs in New Zealand. I've led a pretty charmed life. And for the last couple of years, I've been focusing my efforts on studying why the trucking industry is the way it is, especially through the work of academics such as Michael Belzer, Steve Viscelli, Stephen Burks, and Karen Levy, all of whom have been or will be on my podcast and whose books you guys should read. If you guys want to find out more about what I do, you can find my podcast and my writings at autonomoustruckers.substack.com. and I am also your host and quarterback for this presentation. I've been working with James on his photojournalism project at Syracuse University. He's come trucking with me. He's been on my podcast, I think 3 or 4 times, and helped to organize this. I was at his sort of master's presentation. He so graciously invited me to attend. His work is amazing, and you should all go check it out. And with that, I am going to hand it over to James to tell you all about the autonomous and, or as you put it, driverless truck industry.
Yeah, so just give me 1 second to share my screen here and make sure I get the share sound. All right, so I got a little slideshow put together. So it's a crash course, autonomous trucking with America Without Drivers, Gordon McGill, Edward, and myself. Just to kind of give a brief overview of the presentation here. First and foremost, we're going to be addressing a little bit of the skepticism, basically just kind of a call for open minds sort of a thing. Then we'll be going directly into the Aurora Feature Complete announcement that they announced earlier this year to basically say that the trucks are ready. They're just waiting on the software side of things. Then we'll dig in some more to the investor rhetoric, the basics of how it works, and then we'll be going into a quick little side-by-side comparison of Aurora Trucking versus Plus AI. They have dramatically different business models and approaches to bring this to market. And then we start getting into the trucking consequences and bigger picture consequences. And then we'll have plenty of time left over for Q&A. We've already received a bunch of your guys' questions on that. So yeah, got a lot to talk about. And if anybody has any problems hearing me, or if I talk too fast or start speaking pig Latin, feel free to let me know here. I'll do my best to keep it concise. All right, so first off, with addressing the skepticism, it's important to remember that the artificial intelligence is completely different than anything that we've ever built before. It's more akin to aliens landing than creating the iPhone 18 or anything. We've never had technology before that can replace human thought and be implemented to every aspect of the economy simultaneously, and it's profoundly different than anything we've had before, like I've said before. And then these capabilities are expanding at an exponential rate, and that process is never going to stop. There's a quote here from Kai-Fu Lee. He's the founder of Google China and one of the top 100 most influential people in the world, and titan in the tech industry. So people pay attention to what he says. As far as autonomous vehicles, he had this to say about it: more data leads to better AI, more automation leads to greater efficiency, more usage leads to reduced costs, more free time leads to greater productivity, and all these will grow into a mutually reinforcing virtuous circle, which will continually rapidly increase the adoption of autonomous vehicles. And that's like, we are in the very beginning stages of that happening right now in the transportation industry. So keep all that in mind, have an open mind. There's going to be a lot of questions and a lot of good reasons for skepticism, but just for the purposes of this presentation, just keep an open mind for it. So I've got a little video here. This is the Feature Complete announcement from Aurora. This will kind of set the tone.
Here's one thing.
Sorry.
Dallas to Houston is long. It's one of the busiest shipping corridors in America. On a road like this, you see all kinds of things. Aggressive drivers, construction, traffic, unpredictable weather. That's why we operate here. It's a proving ground. So what are we proving? That our product is made for a purpose, and it's designed for safety, and it's built for an industry that keeps the economy moving. And most of all, that it's real, pulling freight every day. Aurora has implemented the final features necessary for service between Dallas and Houston in Level 4 autonomy, paving the way for our commercial launch. You could call it the future. We call it Feature Complete.
All right, so that's just a brief introduction into Aurora Trucking. Yeah, they're going to be the first ones to launch at the end of this year with approximately 20 trucks going between Palmer, Texas, and another distribution hub somewhere down by Houston there. So as far as the total amount of relevant autonomous trucking companies that are out there, Aurora Trucking is going to be first and foremost on the list. There's another one called Plus AI. They've got some pretty big partnerships with Amazon, and they're operating internationally in China, Germany, Texas, and who knows where else. They've been in mass production and selling their tech since 2021. Kodiak is neck and neck with Aurora Trucking. They're also targeting I-45 and I-30 between Dallas and Georgia. Then there's also Torque Robotics. They're basically an arm of Daimler-Benz, and then Gatic AI is a business-to-business LTL trucking company that virtually has no competition. They've been operating driverless reefer trucks for like grocery stores like Sam's Club and Kroger for the last couple of years. And then there's Too Simple. They're kind of the butt end of the joke right now because they had a bad crash and they're under federal investigation, but they're still technically kind of a player. So that's why I included them. And then all these links there are hyperlinks going to their main pages, so you can find out more about these companies if you'd like. And I'll send out this presentation after we're done here. So as far as the basic capabilities of autonomous trucking, these things are being advertised to have 24/7 around the clock operations because there's no human there and there's no restriction for hours of service. So these things are going to be able to go 22, 24 hours a day. There's also advertised 10% increase in fuel economy, just based on the more consistent usage of the engine, and it cuts down on excessive braking. Then if you remove the driver, you're also removing up to 45% of the driver-related costs. And the lowball estimate, the most conservative lowball estimate that I could find for like the total overall reduction of operating costs is around 12 to 23%. There's a lot of other statistics that are going around where it's going to be closer to 30 to 45%. The highest, most insane one I've seen is that they'll be able to cut operating costs up to 58%. And all that is hyperlinked right there. So basically with those capabilities, that's going to be the main economic forces that are going to be driving a complete transformation of the transportation industry. It's going to be rivaling the speed of air freight, and it's going to be disrupting the rail industry as well. So like there's going to be no stone that's going to be left unturned by this technology as it gets fully implemented into the market here. And there's we had some discussion previously about what autonomous is and driverless is and stuff. There's another misconception out. There's another misconception about if these vehicles are going to be diesel or electric. As of right now, all of them are diesel. All this is subject to change, but for right now, the existing infrastructure is faster, cheaper, and it's available. So depending on new advancements in battery technology.
Hey, James.
Yeah.
Liz has a question for you.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. I'll speak up. Sorry if you guys can't hear me there.
No. So we had a question in the room about the drivers, like a company drive or accompanied safety driver being in these vehicles. And it's our understanding there are currently safety drivers inside the vehicles right now, the ones that are operating. Is that right? But they're planning on taking them out, or can you clarify that a little bit more?
Yeah, so the commercial launch with Aurora Trucking is basically they're going to have 20 trucks, and by the end of this year, they're very vocal in saying that they will be kicking the safety drivers out. As of right now, like there's going to be safety drivers in all of them, but basically level up for autonomy means that there will not be a human present in that vehicle when it's going down the road. And that's
is this in all the states, or is that just Aurora?
Aurora is the most public about their intentions to kick the driver out. Kodiak Trucking has a pretty relatively similar sized operation. I'm not sure how many trucks they have, but to quote Too Simple, another competitor here, is that driver out is a key proof point to the path of commercialization, and that's the entire point of this, is to remove the driver to get those cost savings. So yeah, eventually drivers will be out.
And the other question, if they do when they remove the safety driver, I mean, is this just like from one destination to another straight highway? Or, because I mean, I know Texas is pretty flat, but you start going into other states, there's a lot of, mountains and other situations.
Yeah, I've got I got some stuff that's going to be addressing that in the next couple slides here. So I'll be touching on that quite a bit here. So, all right. So so just to recap on the diesel electric thing, autonomous trucks can be either diesel or electric, but as of right now, everything is currently diesel just because it's, faster, cheaper, and the infrastructure is available. But, as battery technology improves and charging technology improves, that's going to be subject to change. So let's see here. Okay. And then I've got another quick video here. This is basically how Aurora Trucking is talking directly to their investors and how the narrative is different. This is part of a 2-hour presentation that you can find on YouTube. And it's one of the most alarming quotes that I found on here is that Chris Urmson, the CEO, said lately, "I very much look forward to the day where every truck on I-45 is driven by Aurora." So let's dig into this a little bit.
Imagine taking a trip with me. We're going to head out of the terminal. We're going to drive down surface roads. We're going to get onto the freeway. Along the freeway, we have to interact with traffic. We may encounter debris in the road, construction. We have to be able to navigate all of that. Ultimately, we'll exit the freeway, get back onto surface streets, and pull into terminals. That's the set of capabilities we've been developing at Aurora, and that's what you can see reflected in our roadmap. When we set out to build the Aurora Driver, we really set out to build a driver that would work across different vehicle types. But of course, we're focusing now on delivering Aurora Horizon, our product in freight first. Longer term, we intend to leverage this technology into ride hailing. As we expand from driving on the freeway in our terminal type operations, our trucks will then span to go from warehouse to warehouse. Our passenger vehicles will expand to drive from airports to convention centers and hotels, and ultimately into city centers and all the way between stores and distribution centers. The opportunity in freight is incredible. The US market is about $700 billion. When you compare this to ride hailing today, which is about a $35 billion market, it's a much bigger opportunity. Over time, we don't want to lose track of that ability in personal mobility because we expect that personal mobility space to be about $1 trillion opportunity eventually. We've got these incredible partners in PACCAR and Volvo. Together, they're two of the top 3 truck manufacturers in the US, and they deliver almost half the vehicles in the US. We also work with incredible partners that take those trucks and drivers to do work in the world. FedEx is the largest less-than-truckload carrier in the US. Werner is a top 5 full truckload carrier. Schneider is one of the largest multimodal carriers in the US, and Uber Freight, of course, is an up-and-coming, significant technology-forward freight broker. We also work closely with US Express and Covenant in collaboration. We're delivering a scalable, stable driver supply. Hours of service limit how much our customers can use their vehicles on any given day. This will allow them to get better revenue per vehicle and allow them to move freight more quickly. We expect these vehicles to be significantly more fuel efficient. And then, of course, insurance costs continue to increase. We expect both the combination of safer operation and better visibility into the events that happen on the road will allow us to manage and bring those costs down over time. How are we going to share with you the progress we're making between Feature Complete and Aurora Driver Ready? Well, we committed to providing a measure for this, and what we're going to share with you is our autonomy readiness measure. And this will allow the investment community to follow along and allow us to continue our tradition of being the most transparent company in the AV space. So we've been saying for a while that safety case is the critical thing to actually having a commercially relevant product, and that we will be ready to launch when the safety case is complete. As a reminder, the safety case is this structured argument as to why we have confidence in the safety of the vehicle on the road. And at the top level, it's made up of these 5 things. First, proficient, that when the vehicle is operating in nominal conditions, it's driving well. It's staying in its lane, it's making space for other vehicles. The second is that it's fail-safe. It understands when something is failed or broken, is able to take the appropriate remedial action to keep itself and others on the road safe. That is continuously improving, that we have processes in place to close the cycle so that the driver gets better and we get better as a company and we learn from our mistakes. That it's resilient, that things that we may not have expected to encounter on the road, that we handle gracefully and keep the world safe. And then that the company is trustworthy, that we operate with integrity. But we'll document all of this and we'll have a collection of evidence that gives us the confidence that we've done the engineering work, we've done the process work, we've done the business work to deliver a safe product. Over the arc of history, when there's been fundamental changes, whether it's in communication or transportation, right, going from walking to the horse to the the wagon to the internal combustion engine, this is kind of the next big step in ground transportation.
All right, so that's a brief introduction for how they're talking about it. And there's also publicly available investor reports from similar presentations that they've done in 2021, 22, and 23. The 2021 investor reports were a lot more alarming. There's a lot more meat in these. This is from page 44 of their 2021 investor report, where they say, we believe that these virtuous cycles will create a handful of winners, and winner take most dynamics in the self-driving market, meaning that there's only going to be a handful of companies that are going to be able to compete in this, and the first one to market is probably going to be the one that takes the lion's share of the benefits. And this kind of gets back into that virtuous circle that Kai-Fu Lee was talking in that Kai-Fu Lee quote earlier, where basically the more of these things that you have and the more impact on the market that they make, the more of them that they're going to need, and the better they get, the more customers they're going to have, and that circle just keeps going around and around. This one is page 49 of their investor report. Kind of the big thing is here on the bottom right-hand corner, they state that trucking is a highly fragmented market with 1.2 million owner-operators of trucks. The advent of autonomous trucking technology may drive consolidation over time, given the pricing advantage, increased productivity, and lower labor costs over time. That means huge economic pressure for autonomous take-up. And then there's another thing to reiterate on the bottom left of this, where they say the compounding nature of self-driving technology, network effects of developing partner ecosystems, and gaining trust with key carriers who are benefiting from the consolidation will lead to winner-take-most dynamics among the carriers that they're going to be doing business with. So this company expects that this technology is going to transform the industry to the point where it's basically going to start risking monopolizing specific markets within the trucking industry because they're going to be so competitive, be able to outcompete everyone. Brett Suma, he's the CEO of Loadsmith Trucking. Last year in 2023, ordered 800 autonomous trucks from Kodiak Robotics. They still haven't been delivered yet, but it's in progress. But he estimates that an autonomous truck will be utilized 2.5 times more than a solo driver, meaning that if you have 1,000 autonomous truck, that's 1,000 autonomous trucks is going to be able to do the work, according to this guy, of 2,500 human drivers. So it should give you some idea of the productivity at play here. And this is from Too Simple's Investor Day in 2022. The interesting thing here is that Too Simple and all these carriers are targeting the highest density freight routes that are available to maximize their return on investment. So the Dallas to Houston lane on I-45, they've identified as being worth $3 to $4 billion annually. And as this technology grows, you can expect to see these trucks appearing on the highest density freight lanes around the most amount of people, despite it being, relatively new and untested and wildly imperfect technology yet. So that's one major consideration where like safety isn't quite paramount. Isn't their number one consideration for this? It's definitely the money. And this kind of touches back on what Chris Urmson was saying in that investor video. When he was talking about warehouses and distribution hubs, like this is basically the model that it's going to be going off of, is that you've got truck port A and then truck port B. Those are going to be your transfer hubs where basically autonomous trucks are, at least in the beginning, are only going to be going long empty stretches of highway miles, predominantly in line haul markets, parcel, drive in, and all that kind of stuff. So it's going to be doing the easiest things first, and then it's going to be expanding on that out to distribution centers, then ultimately dock to dock, and warehouses to back doors on businesses and stuff. And then we're going to be digging into Aurora Trucking just a little bit more here. But as far as their testing partnerships, these are all the people on the left that they're currently dealing with. So they've got pilot programs with FedEx, Werner, Hirschbach, Schneider, US Express, Covenant, Uber Freight. And over on the right, I've hyperlinked a bunch of articles that talk about other companies, like with Kodiak Robotics, with Loadsmith, like I mentioned before, and Maersk is another new one I found recently. Amazon's in on the game. Kroger, UPS is going to be a huge one. UPS had partnerships with Waymo and Too Simple. I don't think they've recalibrated that to volatility in the market because both of those, Waymo and Too Simple, aren't really considered major players anymore. But yeah, it should give you some idea of like who's looking into this tech and who's likely to benefit the most from it. And as far as the I-40 launch on I-45, if that's going to be the test bed, so if they can prove the viability of their technology, the next place where you're going to see Aurora is going to be on I-20 between Dallas and El Paso, and then they're going to start expanding west and expanding north, and basically by the end of the decade they'll be in the northern United States, is what they're saying, if all goes well and they don't have a catastrophic crash or hacking attempt or something like that. And the way that Aurora is kind of dominating the game right now, as far as having like a dedicated purpose-built truck from OEMs, is that they're training their system basically on a video game. And they're able to get, as of the end of 2021, they were able to get 22 million miles of virtual training data every single day, which if you do the math on that, it's about 8 to 9 billion miles of simulated training data a year. So by now they could have 20, 30 billion miles worth of simulated driving data, and that's how they're rapidly getting their autonomous readiness indicator metric up to as high as it is. Which leads me into this slide. During the third quarter of 2023, 60% of their trucks had an API rating of 100%, meaning that if the API is 100%, that means that no safety driver intervention was required at all between Palmer, Texas, and their destination in Houston. And 84% of their trucks were operating at 99. So these guys are getting incredibly close. And you can see in the bottom right-hand corner is that their rate of growth and capability is growing very, very quickly. And they have another 11 months to go before they kick the driver out to get that up to like 99.99, however many nines, until they feel that it's low risk enough for businesses to really start implementing this in a major way. All right, and then that gets us over to Plus AI. I got a short 2-minute video from these guys.
Most of the things we eat and use every day, it is the invisible engine that powers our economy. The reality is there are not enough truck drivers to keep pace with our needs, and companies are having a hard time retaining their drivers. It is time for a new paradigm. Introducing Plus.
We founded Plus with a vision to transform trucking through technology. Starting today with supervised autonomous trucks and evolving into a future with driverless trucks. We believe trucking should be safer, more efficient, and more comfortable. We're excited to be on the path to achieve this goal.
We have a two-part strategy. Part one, which we are currently implementing, is to deploy our full-stack autonomous driving system, Plus Drive, globally. We are starting mass production of Plus Drive with the largest truck manufacturer in the world, FAW. Plus Drive powers FAW's automated trucks starting with their J7 trucks. We are also integrating Plus Drive with existing trucks here in the US. Part two of our strategy is to use the data we gather from our global Plus Drive fleet to develop the safest autonomous driving system that is 100% driverless.
Here's how Plus Drive works. Best-in-class LiDAR and radar sensors, combined with a state-of-the-art multi-view camera system, work together to create a long-range, 360-degree view with centimeter-level accuracy. Data from this sensor array streams into the main computer, where deep neural networks and modern algorithms work together to perceive the world, choose the optimal driving behavior, and turn it into steering, brake, and throttle controls for the truck. This powerful system allows Plus Drive to react many times faster than a human driver.
The fuel savings offered by Plus Drive alone would have made me choose the system, not to mention how impressive the technology was.
Our autonomous driving technology was behind the world's first driverless truck operation in 2018 in Qingdao, one of the largest container ports in the world. With Plus Drive currently being deployed globally, we will be constantly training our autonomous driving solution with millions of miles of data every day.
During the time I spent at Amazon, I was able to see how we operate our fleet, but also understand the roadmap of autonomous driving technologies being developed by tech developers, tier 1s, and truck OEMs. Plus Drive is an investment with a clear and quick ROI for any fleet.
We're truly excited to deliver Plus Drive to customers this year.
Our autonomous trucks are available now. We invite you to help us shape the future of trucking today.
Hey James, I'm going to interject here just for 1 minute. I want everyone to understand what you saw at the beginning of this presentation. These guys are cribbing a long-running lie from people like the American Trucking Association about the driver shortage. There's never been a driver shortage. There's 3 times as many people as CDLs in America as there are jobs which require one. The government spends hundreds of millions of dollars on CDL schools through various subsidies and grant programs to flood the market with more truck drivers because the industry won't fix itself. One of these gentlemen also said, we want to make trucking more safe and more comfortable and more whatever. Why didn't they do that for when humans were driving it, right? Like, you have to start asking yourself these questions when you see these presentations about why all of a sudden they think they're fixing things with technology when they refused to fix them with people. And then they went to the government looking for free taxpayer money to make you get paid less and to put more unsafe, less trained drivers on the road. Just keep that stuff in mind when you hear shit like this. Thank you.
Yeah, and the language of these promotional materials from these carriers or the tech developers and stuff, like that language is riddled throughout all of it. And you'll keep everything that Gord highlighted there, like it just keeps popping up because it's a very concise and clear narrative that they're trying to spin on this. But yeah, it's getting back to Plus AI here. These guys are significantly different than Aurora because they're going after real world training data versus video game data that Aurora is going after. So as of 2021, this company had 10,000 orders placed, and as of 2022, Amazon's order of 1,000 was being delivered at scale. So by now, Amazon's already got 1,000 other entry level driverless vehicles. And basically the plan is to get to 10 billion miles worth of real world information before they're going to be able to kick the driver out. And based at the scale, exponential math kind of takes over here. So getting a 10 billion mile market, like depending on how many units they actually deliver, it's not going to take that long. And they can also do simulation on top of that as well. So this is kind of like the cost breakdown for their SL4 system, which is basically like the entry level data acquisition package that they have, where basically they just throw a couple sensors on the trucks to get enough data. And, the big selling point from Plus AI is that they're advertising you get a 10% increase in fuel economy, which is their big selling point, where you can get the benefits of the system now and not have to wait, 5 years until your competition already has these things, right? But as far as the initial software or hardware package, it's only $17,000 plus a $1,000 annual subscription, and that's just for the data gathering. For the fully autonomous, no driver required system, there's going to be an additional $30,000 upfront. You can see that down the bottom left-hand corner of the chart here, but it's $30,000 in terms of the hardware, and $35,000 to $50,000 for the subscription that you would need for like the driver as a service model that these tech developers are going after. So like the barriers to entry into this are lower than a lot of people, or could be lower than a lot of people would think, but then there's going to be other associated costs like higher insurance, at least initially, and then the $30,000 upfront seems pretty low. In my opinion, I've seen other estimates that range that the hardware to get a self-driving truck going for diesel and all that would be ranging roughly from $30,000 to $100,000, depending on manufacturing, supply, and all that. So yeah, just keep that in mind. That's kind of the first and only specific price points that I've seen about how much this is going to add for added cost and cost of doing business and stuff. But now we're getting into kind of the dangers of AI and autonomous trucking. The biggest concern is going to be job loss. There's a lot of different facts and figures that are being thrown around right now from estimates in academia, but those range from anywhere from 30,000 drivers out of a job to 2.1 million in the foreseeable future in the next 10 to 20 years. Most of the estimates kind of gravitate over towards like 300,000 to 500,000, based depending on a lot of different variables, but yeah, the 300,000 to 500,000 seems to be the most consistent estimate out there.
James, this is Edward Escobar. If you can mention, this is permanent displacement of the workforce.
Like once these jobs are gone, like they're not going to be coming back because nobody else is going to be able to compete with this.
And as far as retraining for other options in the workforce too, they're trying to sell it as that's a distinct possibility, which is not realistic. As we know, truck drivers, they want to go to their grave driving a truck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but there's definitely a great point there. But there's a bunch of other considerations here. I'm just going to kind of like breeze over these because we could talk about this for days. But there's going to be a very big environmental concern with this, because that if you make driving freight cheaper, faster, and all that, you're going to incentivize more driving being done. And if you change the way that freight moves, there's other environmental aspects of this where like this is not going to be anywhere near as green as they say it is. The technology is being thoroughly greenwashed. It's going to contribute to economic inequality. It's going to definitely damage or hurt rural trucking companies that are to be stuck in drive-through states like Mississippi and Alabama. Like those states aren't going to benefit from, the quote unquote new jobs or the capabilities of these trucks, because they're just going to be driving through and robbing, small businesses of like truck stops for restaurants and all that kind of stuff. There's terrorism, national security concerns with, cyber attacks, hacking, any variety of ways they can manipulate the software outside of the truck, and then also the political instability. Like if you have, 300,000 to 500,000 drivers out of a job, on top of all the, recent grad students that are, rapidly finding that they're being de-skilled on a daily basis by all the new AI technologies and all the other blue collar and white collar work in manufacturing and administrative roles. Like anybody that loses from this, loses to this technology, is going to have an axe to grind. So the political instability of that is also a really concerning thing. And then as far as like the bigger, broader societal level impact, there's been some pretty alarming studies coming out in 2013 in Oxford. They said that 47% of job related tasks could be automatable by 2050. Kai-Fu Lee stated in his recent book, AI Superpowers, that 40% of all jobs could be lost globally by 2034. 6 in 10 Americans are going to need retraining by 2027, according to the World Economic Forum. And Microsoft said earlier this year that 90% of businesses want to start using AI, and that ChatGPT 4 is already showing sparks of an AGI, which is artificial general intelligence. And this is like not necessarily trucking related, but like if AGI comes around, that's like going from firecrackers to nukes in terms of capability. And then there's also quantum AI, and that's going to likely happen within the next 5 years, and that's like going from nukes to supernovas in terms of capability. So like this tech is going extremely fast, and there's a lot of societal consequences of this that desperately need to be discussed. So there's been a lot of bombshells dropped, and I'm sure there's a lot of concern about what this technology means, but there's reason to hope. It hasn't happened yet. It hasn't happened yet, and there's still things that drivers can do and general public can start doing to direct this into a better direction, for lack of a better word. But as far as the business related stuff goes, anything that these companies are going to be targeting, and like the parcel market, line haul, and refrigerated trailers are going to be the first ones to be targeted by autonomous trucking. So anything that's the easiest, where you're bumping a dock and going back and forth all the time on the same routes, those are going to be the first ones to be automated. So anything in hazmat, heavy haul, oversized, flatbed, anything that's more labor intensive is going to be safer for longer. And like the whole point of the series and discussion is to raise the issues and keep talking about it, especially the things that the developers don't want people talking about, like the job displacement and the fact that it's going to expand past the transfer hub model and eventually get to everywhere, because they're trying to pitch the fact that drivers are going to be able to make up the difference with better, shorter local driving jobs, which are obviously only temporary. Other things that we could all do is demand more accountability from regulators and tech companies, networking with like-minded organizations. There's other trucking associations out there. The Truckload Carriers Association is another good one. The unions and Teamsters, Teamsters especially, are leading the charge on this issue. Like they had the big showing for AB 316 out in California recently, and there's 1,000 of them screaming at Gavin Newsom. It was definitely a sight to see. And then so like basically this is going to create a lot of opportunities for cases of strange bedfellows where people can work together. And then the other interesting thing with the California AB 316 autonomous trucking ban, that passed every vote every single time with overwhelming bipartisan majorities, and there's a huge appetite right now for bipartisan cooperation as it relates to AI regulation and its effects on the economy. So this, like I said before, none of this has happened yet, and there's a lot of really great reasons to be hopeful too. So so that's my presentation. Hopefully nobody's sleeping or died of boredom. So I guess we can start opening it up to questions here.
Well, one sec. Before we get to questions, we're going to let Will from America Without Drivers bring some other information to add on, and then we'll open the floor.
Hey, thanks, Gord. Guys, I just want to point on something before you start asking questions, and this will just help you with your questions leading into it. I went over your questions last night that you guys submitted, and I think this is going to help you out a lot. The first thing I want to mention is we're lacking in transparency of what these tests, what the results are from the tests from these autonomous manufacturers. All right. And then we need to push this. And it's even being told to me, I go and talk to senators in Indianapolis at the Capitol, and they agree too that there's just no transparency in this stuff. Okay. They're bringing them the good results. They're not bringing them the bad or the anything else. So, and the one thing that we learned with Waymo, and Edward will be able to talk about this when I get done, the one thing that we learned with Cruise, I'm sorry, not Waymo, was the more vehicles you put out on the road, the more problems started popping up. Okay. The least amount of numbers, the more they can get out here and they can log safe miles and good deliveries, because they don't have that many vehicles out on the roads yet. So as you listen to some of these points, I couldn't remember them all, so I'm going to read them off to you. And it only take me a couple minutes. You just really need to listen in, because you'll understand that the more vehicles are out here, the more problems are going to occur. And the more that we get out here, the harder it's going to be to put them back in the box. Okay. So there's a reason why the public doesn't know. And a lot of the investors and manufacturers want to get this stuff out here and then fix it when it's out. All right. There's several potential downfalls on relying on sensors and algorithms in driverless trucks. Sensor limitations. Sensors such as LiDAR, radar, and cameras have limitations in their capabilities. They may struggle to accurately perceive certain objects or environmental conditions, especially in challenging scenarios like heavy rain, fog, or low light conditions. Inaccurate or incomplete sensors data can lead to incorrect decisions or failures in detecting obstacles, potentially resulting in accidents. Now, just that one alone, this is something that they strive on, and they always go and say, we've got this down. We've got sensors backing up sensors. Fog doesn't do it, so forth like that. But there's also a reason why they're doing it in the South. Okay, and we'll move on. Number 2, sensor interference. Sensor interference can occur when there's the key, multiple vehicles equipped with similar sensors operate in close proximity. In such cases, the sensors may interfere with each other's signals, leading to inaccurate readings or false detections. This can cause confusion for the algorithms and impact the overall performance of the driverless trucks. I want the answer to that. I want to ask these tech people this. Where's this data? Show me where you've had all these trucks, hundreds of trucks operating down this highway, going back and forth, and they cannot bounce off each other and keep going. That was number 2. Number 3, algorithm errors. The algorithm used to driverless trucks rely on predefined rules and machine learning models to analyze sensors data and make decisions. However, these algorithms can have limitations and may not always accurately interpret the data or respond appropriately to certain situations. Algorithm errors can lead to incorrect decisions, putting the safety of the truck and other road users at risk. Now, these are studies that's been done, that these studies don't come out, okay? Number 4, limited adaptability. Driverless trucks may struggle to adapt to a complex and unpredictable situation on the road. While they excel in controlled environments, they may encounter difficulties in handling unexpected events, extreme weather conditions, or complex traffic scenarios. Human drivers often rely on intuition, experience, and common sense to navigate such situations, which autonomous systems may not possess. Okay, this is something that's talked, and they just kind of briefly do it, and they say they're working on it. They haven't done it, but they got to get out. They're saying they have to get out on the road and let these machines and the data experience these things. So basically, our families, and can I say this? Our families and the drivers out on the road are test dummies for these driverless trucks. Now, as I was out talking to the public the other day, I told them, I said, we're not test dummies. If they want to test these things, they need to go to testing grounds and test them. Okay. Especially when more and more come out, because Cruise is a great example of the more driverless cars they put out in San Francisco, the more accidents and problems we had. So what's going to happen with 80,000 pounds versus 2,500 pounds? Okay. All right. 6. Number 5, cyber risks. The reliance on computer systems and data networks in driverless trucks introduces cybersecurity risks. These vehicles can be vulnerable to hacking and cyber attacks, which could compromise the integrity and safety of the systems. Malicious actors could potentially gain control of the trucks and manipulate their behavior, leading to serious safety risk on the road. We can talk about this for a half hour just on this cyber risk alone, okay? There's many ways that these things can be hacked. Legal and regulatory challenges. The implementation of driverless trucks raises legal and regulatory challenges. New laws and regulations need to be developed to address liability, insurance, and safety standards for autonomous vehicles. Clear guidelines and protocols are necessary to ensure the responsible and safe operation of driverless trucks. Okay, I was just on X the other day, and these Aurora and these driverless trucks are already getting attorneys to work with law firms to try to make it to where we can't sue these trucks. If there's an accident or something, they're already, and this is public record, they're already starting to form an alliance to get it to where, just like government vehicles, state highway, you know, if they get in an accident or something like that, they've got that covered to where you can't really sue them. Okay. Ethical dilemmas. Number 7. Autonomous systems may face ethical dilemmas in certain situations where they have to make split-second decisions. For example, if a driverless truck encounters an unavoidable collision scenario, it may need to decide between protecting the occupants of the truck or minimizing the harm to other road users. Resolving these ethical dilemmas and determining the right course of action can be challenging and may require human intervention. Addressing these potential downfalls requires continuous advancements in sensors, technology, algorithm development, cybersecurity measures, and regulatory frameworks. Robust testing, validation, monitoring processes are essential to ensure the safe and effective operation of driverless trucks. Again, transparency. We do not have transparency. This is what America Without Drivers is all about, is bringing this awareness. Nobody's telling you guys this. And these are the questions that you have. And they're not being talked about. The Senate, nobody in the Senate can answer these questions, and they don't even want to hear them right now. They don't want to have these debates, okay? And they're very valid questions. That's all I've got right now. Thank you, Gordon.
Let's have any additional questions from Liz and Priscilla's live audience, and then we'll move to the folks who called in on Zoom.
We have a question. Sorry, Patrice, what was it?
Where is the risk intake report, like where they have tested against different scenarios where you have to stop real quick, like kind of like the crash dummy that we see on the
data,
TV?
like a data report.
Yeah, the data, yeah.
So one of our trucking companies, she wants to know, is there risk report or data available from these tests that they've done so far, and is it public for anyone to access?
You guys want me to answer this?
Well, let me jump in real quick. This is Edward Escobar in San Francisco, because we were successful at defeating GM Cruise, getting their permit pulled for California. There's a lot of this proprietary data that they claim, and you can't trust that they're self-monitoring in many respects. And so even that, you have to like kind of squint at it and really look at, they're trying to pitch to have their product have a successful rollout. And the mindset is profits over people 24/7. So whatever it takes for them to get it to market, the sooner the better for them. You're talking about billions upon billions of dollars, and they want to see a return on investment. And you know, these are corporations. A corporation's personality profile is that of a sociopath. They don't care about society. They don't care about safety. They don't care about all of these other issues that most people think that they would be forced to care about when it comes to government regulations. Even the California DMV doesn't even have any codes to address violations. So these folks are basically flying above the law. So that's an excellent start point from there. Beyond that, they are counting on you folks to be in a state of ignorant denial, to say, oh, that this is not going to happen. This is not happening now. It's happening now. We've already done a lot of the heavy lifting for you folks in terms of being there in the trenches and getting our hands dirty and asking the tough questions. So it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And it's already there, but they're developing the infrastructure so it's so effective and so ready to go that they could flip a switch, and before you know it, it's already happening. By then, a little too late to do anything about it as far as reversing the path. And I want to clarify, we are not against technology, but we are against technology that benefits the few at the expense of the many. So I'll pass the mic back to you.
All right. Any more questions from your live audience, Liz?
No. I had a little bit of a piggyback there. As far as like autonomous trucking regulation goes, like there's no national standard yet. There's been something that's been kicked around in Congress a while, but it's never gotten any traction. As far as like reporting standards and everything, that's going to be an individual state by state cases. As far as Texas is example for crash reporting and all that, I'm not aware of specifically how that process is outlined in Texas right now. So like as far as those sorts of things go, like Edward said before, this technology is going way faster than our ability to regulate it, and lawmakers are just starting to get around to generative AI stuff, and autonomous trucking and vehicles are way at the bottom of the list of that. So yeah, it's a pretty difficult question to answer, but I've got to. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Let me throw a little add in too. You got to realize that the competitor in this space is China. And the administration does not want to lose the race for progress when it comes to AI, autonomous, self-driving, automation, everything. When it comes to these advancements, they do not want to lose that placement in progress on a global basis against China. China is not a permission-based society. So as was mentioned earlier about test dummies, guinea pigs is more like it. Which is even worse. And they have no qualms about using us as expendable, replaceable, and disposable participants so that they could blow out their infrastructure. Like I said, profits before people 24/7. That's how you have to look at it. So that way we could try to find some solutions here. So we could be part of the solution in this transition towards technology being in the driver's seat. Back to you.
All right, go for it, Liz and Priscilla.
I have a question. So, and I know we talked about this whenever we first spoke, as it pertains to small businesses. I know not Aurora or the manufacturers as much, but these companies that are using the trucks already, the big corporations, the FedEx, the Uber Freight, they rely on small businesses for their business as well, smaller trucking companies. Is there any commentary or anything they have done or are working on to kind of address the challenges or the potential pitfalls for small businesses? Or, to your point earlier, I think somebody said it, are they, I know there's a lot of ignorance about this topic out there. So are they just using that to not address it at all? Do you guys know?
As far as like how they're approaching like the impacts on jobs and smaller businesses and stuff, like there has been some small platitudes put out there saying like, oh well, like this technology is going to help drivers by creating more opportunities for local trucking jobs where everybody can be back home to see their families every night and that sort of thing. And that might be true because like if to an extent, if you squint and you ignore all the other stuff. As far as like how all these companies and stuff are navigating that idea, they'll say things like that, where like these new local driving jobs are going to be better paying, you'll be home more often, sort of a thing. But they're not saying things like those local driving jobs already pay considerably less, and that those driving jobs are already temporary. So there's like a lot of misdirection in how they're talking about it, and they bring up points like that when they talk to congressmen and senators. And regulators, and they don't bring that up to investors because frankly the investors don't care. So
let me jump in here. Is that real quick, is that they'll sell you this utopic vision of the future in the future of work, but the outcome truly is dystopic. It's not at all. It's all about profits before people, as I said earlier. So you got to keep that in mind, that they're going to pitch you with any way that they can to get the end results that they want to accomplish. And by the time they've already achieved it, it's too late for you to see the reality of what the outcome is.
If I'm hearing your question right, as far as small business goes, I've been out on the streets putting boots on the ground talking to small business owners, and I'm talking and not trucking business owners, but business owners. And I would say that not even 90%, but 97% have seen something about driverless trucks, but they're not even thinking about driverless trucks right now. And I'll also go to say that outside of transportation in the Senate, your senators, your district senators and congressmen, outside of transportation committee or the labor committee, and half of even the labor committee isn't even paying attention to this. Even your politicians, your senators and stuff, don't have a clue what's going on with these driverless trucks. Okay, so to answer that question, that's why I am so passionate about what I'm doing. I'm like, you're blindsiding middle class America here with this stuff. They want to get it out here and get it all done and put together before you can even say I don't want it, or how will it displace drivers, or what will it do to us. And that's just from someone that truly, we have Truck the Vote, and that's what Truck the Vote does. We get on the ground, we go talk to people, businesses, the public, not even a truck driver. I mean, most of the truck drivers aren't even paying attention to this stuff. All right. And that is the biggest upper hand that they have. That is what they have, is because where they talk about these things, it is not on social media, on Facebook, or where truck drivers or your small business owner is going to be. They are talking about this stuff on platforms like LinkedIn and Twitter, and the only people that's going to be following them is high CEOs, mega carriers, and tech people. And those are the ones who are invested into this technology. So that's why it's so important to get this information out, let people know what's going on, and get it to the general public. So to answer your question, most of your small business owners don't have a clue of what's going on, or the in-depth of it. They may have said, oh, I've seen something on the news, or I've seen this or there, but to them, it's not a reality right now. I mean, think about it. I mean, I talked to 50 people yesterday. Was it yesterday or day before yesterday? And none of them really knew anything about driverless trucks. Okay. And these are business people. I was outside of Rural King. I was down at the courthouse down in Jasper, Indiana. I mean, and these are small business people. These are factory workers. And I did talk to a couple drivers, and the drivers that I did talk to, oh yeah, I seen something on social media about that, but come on, they'll never blah, blah, blah. So that's why it's important to get ahead of us. And this is also why the senator in Indiana, or the committee, the chair committee, shot it down, is because they need this, the public not knowing about this. They need to get this and get their house in order before the public even wakes up to this stuff. Go ahead.
Is there going to be dismissive about this until they build out the infrastructure? And you have to look at it that these are all control mechanisms that are happening. It's not just trucking. It's not just passenger transport. And also, we're not talking about drone technology that's being used. If you'll see that they're using a big word called mobility. And that's where they're lumping everything into. The transport industry sector is like a 12 trillion plus industry. So you're talking huge profits, and at any cost. And that it means human expenditures. They don't care. This is a squeezing out of the middle class. The middle class comprises a lot of the small business that you're asking about, small business and the workforce, the labor. So that is working class. That is the backbone of this country. But we're the biggest threat when it comes to, from a grassroots standpoint, of truly making it about we the people and us taking charge and being in the forefront. The other aspect, really quick, is the convoys that you've seen has happened, and these labor issues that come up when it comes to like AB5 out of California, about the independent contractor status and about the proper classification of the worker. All those issues will go away as soon as they introduce self-driving technology, because now you've removed the human aspect, the human undeterminable, unreliable, emotional aspect that can throw a monkey wrench into the wheel. So that's what they're also working on as well, because then it's straight pure profits into the corporate profit pocketbook, and excluding the middleman, which is us. Back to you, Gord.
All right. Thank you, Edward and Will. We had a question from one of our Zoom call in. It's Daniel. Would you like to go ahead?
So my question is, I know that we're vamping that way, and there's a lot of things of, EBOLs and all that software going in. My question is, looking into the future, right? Because right now we're preparing. Looking into the future, has anybody come across with how that picture is going to look for people receiving their merchandise? Because I know there's a lot of hiccups whenever a truck driver is transporting freight. And let's say you're transporting, I don't know, produce, and it shakes in the roads, right? Would that be something that the company will be liable? Has there been any research as to how are they going to accommodate that, and how does that look like at the end of the shipment?
You want me to answer this?
Yeah, go for
Anybody
it, sir.
All right. So if I'm understanding the question right, it's what the end result looks like. Right now, right now it's middle mile. Okay, it's line haul and it's over the road. And they're going to just jump off the exit. And that's why a lot of these warehouses in Phoenix and down through there are being built. I mean, if you just go to north of Phoenix and out some of the places, it's amazing how many warehouses have been built and are being built. But it's so that they can come off of the exit, go to a warehouse, and cross dock it onto a local truck that will go and do that final mile, what we call the final mile. Okay. Now, to progress forward, to answer your question there, what it looks like going in the future, they're already working on having people stationary in an office doing like a remote control car type deal and driving trucks through a city, a driverless truck through a city from a computer screen, just like a video game.
Also, you got to look at this, Edward Escobar. You got to look at the advancement of robotics and how this additional component blending in with transport to be there to capture any of these areas that need the human touch. And you'd be amazed if you look into technology. It is so advanced, so much more so that has gotten out to the general public. You have to actually look for this technology to find out about it, just as we have. So it's there. It's just a matter, like I said, it's flipping the switch and making it happen. And that's why it's essential that we have the narrative driven from the trenches in this grassroots approach. And like I said, we've done a lot of the heavy lifting for you folks, but you cannot stay in this state of ignorant denial, saying that, oh, this is just from Hollywood in the movies. No, this is happening now. It's been happening. So it's going to exponentially happen. That's nothing I want to address. People think that you have all the time in the world. The luxury of time is not on our side, because this is not a chronological lineal development. This is exponential. This is viral. And when it happens, it goes very quickly, just like the advent of AI, ChatGPT. This is blowing up. They work 24/7. They don't rest. They don't sleep. They don't eat. They don't do anything that human beings have to do. So they are constantly improving upon themselves. And we are feeding into, for people that are sci-fi people, into the Borg, into the Matrix. We are feeding them more information. They are using us as worker bees to build out the infrastructure. And then when we are no longer useful, expendable, replaceable, disposable. That's what it comes down to.
But let me follow up with what Edward said real quick. We had done studies on this. This has been in play hard and heavy on a fast track, and we didn't even know it since 2015. All right. We've seen the white paper studies and so forth like that. The Obama, and we're nonpartisan on this. This is a nonpartisan issue, okay? But politics does play a big role in this, and our government plays a big role in it. So to talk about these kind of things and not bring up presidents or politics, you just can't do it. You're not going to get the truth, and you're not going to get the realistics of what's going on. But to go back to it and not even get deep in it, but Obama put a team together, which was Google, Apple, the top 5, okay, of our tech people. And this is, you can go public record and check this out. He put a team of 5 together and asked them the question, how are we, and he brought them to the White House, and this was a team literally put together. How are we going to transition from driving vehicles to driverless? Okay, this team was put together, and I think a lot of the stuff that's being played out now is some of the results of that. All right, I won't get into all that. But, and then when Trump ended up in office, Trump didn't do away with the team. It just dissolved on its own. Okay, they just never did anything and so forth like that. So, as Edward said, this is something that our top tech giants are trying to condition society for. This is very much being played out on a pre-existing schedule. So there you go. That's why it's so messed up in politics right now too, because the transfer of wealth and all that, it's just deeper than transportation. You can't really get into it because there's so many feelings and different opinions on things. But what we try to do is we try to stay focused on the facts, and the facts don't really care about your feelings. It's the facts. And the facts are, back when Obama was in office, Bush implemented this stuff when we were overseas in the Middle East because our boys were getting blown up on roadside bombs. So they wanted driverless vehicles over there, and it opened up the Pandora box for Silicon Valley and opened it up in here. Okay. Now you have to remember that what I said earlier, there are people, we're driving drones and stuff over in the Middle East. There's guys that are driving those drones that are sitting in Seattle. Okay. So this, like Edward said, there's nothing new to this technology. But Trump put it in, or Bush put it in play. Obama was following up, and then we got Trump came in here, and everything got all mixed up. Okay, and then we also had China involved, and I won't get into that. It's for something else. But we're not stopping it. We're not going to put it back in the box. But the public needs to be aware of us so that we can fight for jobs, we can fight for fair wages, and we can fight for safety for our families. Another thing, you can go back, this is a fact. Yang came out and warned us when he was candidate running for president. He come out and he said, these driverless trucks are going to come and displace a lot of people. Nobody listened to what he said. And then he also said, we'll give them $1,000 extra a month because we're going to displace them. All right. And then so it's all right there. I mean, the information's out there. I'll hush up because then I'll start going down other trails, and then you have to be able to explain it.
All right.
To understand it.
On wheel.
Hey, look, real quick. Hey, Liz and Priscilla have been waiting very patiently. Okay. And I'm going to let them ask a question. Go ahead, ladies.
We actually have 3 different people that want to ask 3 different questions. So, Jeff, go ahead and go first, and then Alex, and then you have a question too.
Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about accountability for mistakes, right? From my understanding, driving isn't a right here, it's a privilege, right? You have to take a test in order to get licensed. And if you make a mistake, your driving privileges can be revoked. And that impacts that specific individual. So if somebody gets in an accident, there's a death, something happens, that individual, there's repercussions for that mistake. What's the accountability like for, driverless trucks, these companies? Is it just, a fine that they pay and, nobody's really taking responsibility for that, where, today's the drivers, any mistakes they make, they're facing repercussion for their mistake?
I could speak to that. Edward Escobar here.
You just opened up a huge can of worms.
Yeah, because that's an ethical dilemma right there. Because who's to say, these coders, these programmers, they're the ones that created it's artificial intelligence. This is real intelligence, because the results and the outcomes are tragic and can be, and it's lasting and detrimental. And there's no accountability because it's not on the books yet. So these folks are flying above the law, but that's the ethical dilemma. And that's what we're talking about. Not just, that aspect, the liability full on, property damage, everything else. So these folks are flying above the law, and what they do is they guinea pig particular areas, and then they see how it flies, and the concepts then are transferred and applied in other geographic areas. And so that's what you see that's going on. There's a lot of issues that people, they don't stop and think about, that how complex this is, and there's repercussions of this technology. And people don't, they kind of want to avoid the discussion of it because it's uncomfortable. It's called, cognitive dissonance. When you're used to thinking of things in a certain particular way, then you find your comfort zone, and you don't want to introduce new ideas or concepts because it disrupts your whole way of thinking in the prior. So that's what we're doing here. We're shaking this up, and people don't want to hear it. It's uncomfortable, but the narrative has to be driven from the trenches, and we are that. We are the grassroots. So back to you.
Yeah. Just to kind of dig into that a little bit more here. Like ultimately you can't punish a robot. Like there's no mechanism to do that. And there's also, again, no regulatory framework to hold these companies criminally responsible. Like if I'll send off an email later on, but there's a database that I found where they people out in San Francisco have cataloged every single instance that the fire departments out in San Francisco have had to deal with crews. And GM, Waymo, Zoox, they're owned by Amazon and stuff out there, and they've had around 60 incidents of these things obstructing traffic, blocking emergency vehicles during like life-saving medical care and stuff. And the worst that these companies get is a slap on the wrist, when if a human driver would have done that, they would have been in prison for it. So like it really kind of gets to this whole thing where like there is a complete lack of accountability for this, and there's no framework to rectify that. And especially on a state-based level, the states have their own like little regulatory laboratories right now, and Texas is a pretty lax state in terms of regulations on that too. So it's, yeah, like I said, it's a wild west out there, and there's no mechanism to deal with that.
James, if you could address also, because there's the AV autonomous vehicle, there's the EV component that's being melded with this whole rollout as well. And those EV technology, the battery, when they're on fire, the fire department hates them because they last, and it's a hazmat. James, I don't know if you could speak to that, please.
Wait, address his question though. He had his question. And his question is, about these having accidents and accountability. And what you guys had an accident down there in Texas by a Waymo truck that was headed northbound from Houston to Dallas. And what it was two semis were side by side. And the draft, the semi, the driverless, the Waymo, was in the right-hand lane, and the other truck come up. I forget what the truck was, but there's a police report on it, and you guys can look it up. It's public records. And the truck passing him come over a little too close to him and hit the sensor on the mirror. When it hit the sensor on the mirror where they kind of scuffed a little bit, it didn't hit the mirror, actually come and crunch or anything like that. They just barely hit. The driverless truck went off the road. It would not. The driver tried to take over the control of the vehicle, the semi, and the semi would not let it. And it drove through you guys have those service roads, right? So it drove over the shoulder into that median there, the shoulder medium, and up into the service road, okay, before it came to a stop. And there's pictures of this and all that. The police were out there. They took this accident, and you don't hear nothing about it, and it's all been brushed under the rug. We don't know what the follow-up is on it. And to go back to what you're saying, right now, I'll guarantee you Waymo paid. First of all, there wasn't no other vehicles involved except for the other trucking company, and I'll guarantee you Waymo or him, that would have been the other trucker's fault for coming into the Waymo truck. So these guys have so much money. I know in the trucking industry, most trucking companies are 80%, the mega carriers are 80% self-insured. So they can pay off a lot of insurance claims and don't even have to report those. They're supposed to up to a certain amount, it's supposed to get reported. Doesn't mean that they do. Okay. But there's a lot of reports, a lot of incidents that aren't reported. Okay. They're paid off cash and they're just out of it. And going back to what you said about a privilege of a driver's license, you really got to think about this, because no longer we say it's a privilege. We've been conditioned to say driving is a privilege, but yet even illegal immigrants coming in right now in the state of Indiana, Kreider voted for them to get a driver's license so they can go to work. It's not necessarily a privilege. It's a necessity now. The other thing is with a driver behind the wheel, a safety driver right now, they can blame it on the driver, just like that right there with that Waymo truck that hit the ditch. When he got hit, they were trying to blame that on the driver if you look at the police report, and then it got brushed under the table. So right now with the safety driver in there, they can blame it on driver error. But when they take the driver out, that's why they are right now trying to work with law enforcement and attorneys and try to make it to where you can't sue these driverless trucks, or there's a limit, a cap on how much you can sue for. They're working on it right now. It was all over X this past week. It was a big thing. So
to add to what Will just said about accountability and insurance, on my podcast, I had a fellow from Texas by the name of Darren Yancey. He's an insurance adjuster. He was a salesman. He's been in the trucking insurance industry for over 30 years. And I brought this same question to him. You know, how does the insurance industry respond to autonomous driverless vehicles? And I'm not quite sure what Will just said, how that plays into it. But basically, everyone he's talking to in the world of insurance, and unfortunately, the world of the same kind of trial lawyers that make truckers' lives difficult in the event of incidents, you know, the ambulance chasers and whatnot, those same people are, you know, rubbing their hands together, just waiting for a major incident involving an autonomous truck, because what they're going to do is they're going to go up the whole food chain, which is maybe why they're trying to bring this cap in, because they're going to try and get the autonomous truck companies and everybody involved with that, because if there's no driver, there's no responsibility, and they're going to try and see where the chain of that responsibility goes, because they know that these autonomous companies are basically funded to the hilt by venture capital, and those lawyers see a lot of dollar signs, and like, this is yet to play out, but that's something to consider.
Just to clarify, in California, San Francisco, these vehicles, the autonomous, are not required to pass a driver's test. So they don't have to qualify for the CDL, and they're not observed, they're not rated. But I'll tell you, in San Francisco, they drove worse than a student driver that was drunk. That's how bad it is.
So, when Cruise drug that body, real quick, that Cruise drug that body, GM was the one that got sued, and that's why GM Cruise withdrew all their cars. Okay, so to answer that question again, whoever the manufacturer is, and then it's going to be up to Cruise or whoever the manufacturer is who's putting the vehicle out there. Let's say it's Aurora. If Aurora's truck runs over somebody, whoever they run over, the attorneys are going after Aurora, and then it's going to be up to Aurora to go after the sensor, the people, whatever. You get what I'm saying? So it's going to be easy. And it's just like Gord said, they're just going to go right up the chain.
But let me clarify, though, because when it comes to lawsuits, these folks, they don't have the bandwidth, these law firms, in many respects, to go up against these big Goliaths. So, and they're not savvy on this technology and how to address it. So in many respects, it's hard to find legal representation that could take on the case and actually have a chance to win it. Like I said, they're up against a mountain here.
All right, so there's two more questions. They had two more questions from their live audience, please. We should move it along.
Yeah, we have one more here. Well, actually, two more. Go ahead, Alex.
Very quick. This is a question, I think, for Edward. Edward, going back to what you said, that this is not a matter of if, it's more a matter of when. Has California looked into something like a displacement compensation law? I don't know whether in the trucking industry or any other industry, something where everyone could get a piece of the pie.
Well, that would work. And I appreciate your question. As a co-op model, that would work if we own the means of production. If workers, the future of work, if we actually are partners in owning the means of production, meaning the transport vehicles themselves. But right now it's cost prohibitive. And, you know, it would have to be in a co-op model because no one has that kind of money. Just like when you saw the electric vehicles when they first rolled out, you couldn't even purchase them. It was just a lease. So to talk transition, you have to have well-meaning, ready, willing, and able politicians that want to speak on behalf of the workers and society for the greater good. And there's not a lot. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to find someone that's willing to take that chance to step up against big corporate, because when you go up against big corporate, a lot of these politicians are relying for campaign donations, and that's, you know, to fund their reelection campaigns. So it goes bigger and beyond just a simple approach. But yeah, they don't want to have these discussions about the transition. We're forcing that discussion from grassroots. You know, universal basic income, to speak to what Will's talking about with Yang. Yeah, that's great if you give folks some money as a Band-Aid, but what happened to during COVID? A purposefulness. You have to have a purpose for existence and work and being on the road. Any trucker will tell you it's more than just transporting and making money. There's a certain sense of personal satisfaction that you get in the journey, the process. You get what I'm saying? It's not just about the end goal and the destination. So I do appreciate the way you're thinking, because that's how we all have to be thinking about as to the transition of the workforce in the future of work. And they are excluding us as a component in that by going fully automated with all of these types of services and transport and means of production.
All right, next question.
Actually, Alex had a comment. Go ahead, Alex.
Well, all I was going to say is that I was thinking beyond universal income, that if you can get together and think of a displacement compensation for the trucking industry, then you could get perhaps a piece of the pie in addition to the universal income that the government is probably already thinking about. They're going to need to do it. Otherwise, we'll probably have a civil war.
Can I say something here real quick? In Indiana, we're sending emails for that. Exactly what you're saying, ma'am. The answer to your question was no. There is nothing in place. And that's one of the things in Indiana that I'm bringing up to the Capitol all the time, saying, what are you going to do with these drivers that you're displacing? Not only, even if you give them another job, it's not going to equal the income that they have. And then what about the compensation? These drivers have to go pay for schooling to get a CDL and all the investments that they have to become a truck driver. So to answer your question, no, and it is a great question that you're asking, and that's what we need to keep asking. What are we going to do with these guys? These guys lose 20,000. One of the things the autonomous builders, and they shouldn't even be talking about it, our senators and Congress should be talking about this, but it's the manufacturers, is that, they can go to local jobs and there's going to be other jobs. These jobs aren't going to pay the same of the amount of the pay that the jobs that are being taken away are. And then on top of it, like James said, every autonomous truck, one truck will take 2 jobs. They're not creating enough jobs, and it's not going to pay this. And all of us sitting here right now, we're Americans, and we like to spend what we make for the most part, right? Take $20,000, $30,000 off of your job and displace you and make you go get a job that pays $20,000, $30,000 less. Some of us are good stewards of our money, but a lot of us aren't, right? That will disrupt your communities big time.
Let me address that too. The industrial, a lot of people, they say, oh, you know, this technological revolution, let's look back at the industrial revolution. People were retrained for new jobs. Well, when they have AI automated janitors, I mean, they're taking all the jobs on many different levels from blue collar to white collar. So that's what we have to start thinking about with these folks and have these discussions to actually come up with solutions, because it's going to vary region to region as well. But we're talking about permanent displacement of the workforce.
Well, we have one more question here. Jeff, do you want to go ahead and yes, for Tere?
What was do you want to say it, or?
Besides, the grassroots and, spreading awareness, what else can we be doing as an organization to kind of make change or influence the decision makers of the room where it happens? Who can we go to be kind of noisy and facilitate some type of change or voice concerns and opinions for someone who might have the ability to influence some of these decisions that are being made?
That's a great question. You guys, you want to take that one, Will?
So I put boots on the ground, and what I learned, I was sending out emails to all of our district senators, all right, district representatives. Come to find out, the majority of them, unless they're on the Transportation, Homeland, and Labor Committee, those are the three that you really need to focus on, because, I mean, you want to talk to the public and talk to everyone, but you really need to be talking to those for Homeland, Transportation, and Labor. Okay. And in that order, it's transportation is number one, and then labor, and then, or transportation, Homeland Security, and then labor, because labor really don't care until it gets to their doorstep. Okay. Homeland Security doesn't really care until it gets to their doorstep. Transportation is usually transportation and infrastructure. Those are the committees that are talking about this right now. Outside of that, you got to figure your senators are getting bombed with everything, but you really need to get to their districts, get to them, and then get to their district and start talking to people in their district and ask, is this guy saving our jobs? Is he creating jobs? What is he doing with these driverless trucks? And that's for trucking. Now, as far as the cars go, like out in San Francisco and stuff, I'm sure it's the same way. It's transportation, infrastructure, Homeland Security, and labor.
As an organizer myself, you have to unite your base, and that's all grassroots. And you take it to the streets, and that's how we were successful against GM Cruise. How? Because we kept it in the news cycle. We kept hitting them like a boxer. We kept hitting them and kept hitting any issue that popped up. We brought it out. We did a press conference and rally. So, you know, like Will Cook's group, America Without Drivers, Truck the Vote. We have to unite on a grassroots basis, because the politicians, you know, people think, oh, Teamsters, SEIU, or whatever. No, that's old school thought that they're actually going to step up on behalf of the worker. Things have changed. Don't believe what you see in the movies. It's about grassroots.
Yeah, and a lot of times I get, oh, you guys are against driverless. It's really, I think, important on the message. I have found, first thing, you know, I'll stress it, I'm not against this technology. I have concerns about the displacement and the safety. It's not that I'm against this technology. As long as it's beneficial for all of us and not the selected few, you know, that's what's important. And the other thing is to know what you're talking about when you go to talk to these guys. I don't know if Edward or any of you guys can get to our chat, but I got a letter from the chair, and he straight said, I'm not hearing this bill. We have a bill in Indiana, Bill 57, to keep drivers behind the wheel in the truck, a certified driver in a truck of a driverless vehicle, period, whether it's a car, whether it's a semi, no matter what, in the state of Indiana. And 2 years in a row now, it's been shut down by the chair. Well, I finally put pressure on him by doing these postcards and talking to the public and sending emails. So there, you're asking what you can do. That's what I did. I got out, I talked to the public. I had little postcards. Right now, I just did a bunch of them, and they're saying, I support Bill 57, which means keeps the driver in the truck. Well, he has finally come back to me, and you could tell it was an irritated comment. I don't know if you guys have it. I'd love to read it just straight out. It's just real short, but he's basically saying this is a pilot program, and there's too much money involved in it for me to shut it down right now. And we need to see what the outcome of the program, of the test are. And to me, that statement, you can read through it and read between the lines, and you're saying, so basically, you're saying if these driverless trucks, because that's what Aurora and everybody's saying right now, they want to go driverless this year, or they will be. They're ready now. They just need a few more miles to prove to them that they're safe. You're basically saying, Kreider, that driverless trucks are going to be on our road as long as these results go good this year. And you don't want to hear this bill. You don't want us to have this debate on the floor right now, so that these guys have more time to prepare and give you safe miles. When, just like I said with Cruise, though, the argument, you got to know what you're talking about when you go talk to them, because Cruise gave safe miles when they first got the okay to put these driverless trucks on the streets of San Francisco. They presented the safe miles, the time, the data. But then all of a sudden, just like what I read, if you go back through this Zoom, whoever's listening, and you read, all of a sudden now all these vehicles were bouncing off of each other, and it can cause a malfunction. And then the more vehicles they put out, the more problems we've seen. Okay.
Yeah, the grid isn't
Yeah.
able to handle that as well. There was the outside lands when they had a music concert, and a lot of the robo taxis, like 10 of them, they just shut down because it was overwhelmed. And then they want to have their own separate grid set up to support it, but who's going to pay for it? Taxpayers. So they're passing the build out of the infrastructure all onto the taxpayers. But here's the other thing too. A lot of the unions, they don't want to have the discussion. Who forced the hand of Teamsters to have the discussion? It's all from grassroots. They weren't even talking about autonomous until we started pushing it as a thorn. We have to be a thorn in the side of labor, organized labor, and also the politicians, because don't forget where a lot of their campaign funding comes from. Their donors. It's big corporate money. So you have to look at what their motivation. You have to realize that they cannot screw with the American people because there will be consequences. But you have to organize your base of like-minded folks right now. And then you just kind of start to fill up your hopper with more and more of those people, and then unite on the common grounds, like through Will's movement, through our movement, Drivers Unite movement. Combined, then we could basically hit this from all different angles, like I say, like a boxer, different regions, and then they take us seriously. If they don't see the numbers of people behind you when it comes to press conference and rally, you are not taken seriously. I guarantee you that. I've been there many times.
Yeah, definitely side with other organizations that are like-minded, that they're not out here for the money. They're not out here to build up a association for profit, that they're literally out here standing up, for the middle class America and for what's right. You know what I'm saying? And that's one of the biggest things that I've ran into in the last 5 years, is siding with groups or associations that don't have their own agenda. You got to make sure, Edward said it, like-minded, and just be careful about that. We will help you out any way we can. Edward will too. So will James, so will Gord. And it's make sure that when you do get into this, or you do talk to senators, or you talk to people out on the street, you know what you're talking about, okay? Because a lot of people they ask the same questions over and over, and you got to direct them. It's like, these vehicles may be safer than a drunk driver, okay? These vehicles are going to crash. I was on at the fire department, the old scenario. There's got to be so many accidents in the middle of that intersection, so many deaths before they put a stoplight up. There's always casualties in war. There's always this and that. So you have to divert from that, because you only have a short window of time to talk about something, and you need to make it count. And so that's why it is important to make sure that you're having these kind of talks and people are coming together in different groups and associations with the right agenda.
All right. Thank you very much, Will. I think Liz and Priscilla are looking to wind her down here. We're approaching our sort of time limit. Liz and Priscilla, you have the floor.
Well, first, I just wanted to say thank you so much for, you guys were it's an impressive panel. Your background was so needed to get this information out to our members. GHTA, we're on a mission to help in the advancement of the trucking industry, and facilitating this information to our members is important, right? It ensures that they're well prepared with what they need, what's going on, and what's going to happen. So we really appreciate your time today and everybody that participated. So thank you. Priscilla?
Yeah, thank you all. There's been a lot of talk, even just within the room here, and creating awareness. Edward, you've mentioned grassroots efforts. We are a grassroots organization. On Trucking Tuesday, that's coming up next week, there's already been talk about, especially Patrice here, she's passionate and fired up. She's getting ready to tell everybody about this, and I think doing things like this and having platforms like this, not only informing us and growing our awareness on this subject, but that helps us communicate and get the word out, and continuing to get the word out there. And I just spoke to our director of community engagement. Well, we're going to reach out to you for Truck the Vote and get a partnership going. So, you know, when we are talking, we had a Meet the Candidates event a few months ago. We're planning to have another one. You know, we have local and Congress people come out to these events, and having Truck the Vote there, it would be huge, especially to discuss topics like this that's going to impact. It's not a matter of when, like Edward said, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So thank you all so much. And Gordon, thank you for facilitating this.
And James,
if I could add one more thing to it, to broaden your appeal in this grassroots approach is to talk about the future of work. Talk about the future of work, because otherwise people say, well, I'm not a driver, so I shouldn't have to care about that. But when you talk about the future of work and this paradigm shift that we're under right here, they're ushering it under crisis. A lot of it was done during the pandemic, but that's when they issue these major paradigm shifts. And you have to be aware, talk about the new age of AI, being ushered in with automation, self-driving technology, also digital currency. All of this is coming together on a higher level towards the future. So you got to talk about big picture so that everyone will feel it will impact them.
All right. Any other sort of final short thoughts from anybody else?
Just really quick, I just want to thank James again for reaching out and seeing the importance of getting this message out and putting this together. So thanks, James. We appreciate you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'll send out the presentation. It's got everything hyperlinked. So if anybody wants to dig more into some of the materials that are there, and they'll be able to do that. Also, I'll put all of our websites and Substack pages and podcast information and everything available for everybody as well. And then obviously a link to my master's project where people can dig in more of that and reach out if they have any questions. So. Oh, and one other thing, I'm going to be down in Houston in probably about a month, 6 weeks, roughly, after I take a cross-country Amtrak ride, and I am looking for companies to focus on when I'm down in the area to kind of show the what these jobs mean for families and communities in the region too. So if anybody would be interested in participating in that,
I'd like to put you on the calendar.
I'll definitely be down in the area, and if there's any trucking companies or drivers down there that are interested in participating in that, feel free to reach out.
Yeah, we'll get you in some trucks too. Yeah,
that'd be
perfect.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Hey guys, thanks for having us on and listening and bringing awareness to this. I mean, you guys' state, I really feel for you right now. I literally, I was frustrated. I just be honest with you guys right now. I mean, I was like, what are they doing down there? Why aren't they, what's going on? I just didn't understand. It's like, Texas is big and Texas don't put up with no crap, and I'm like, and so I am so happy and excited because you're such a big state. There's so many miles to cover there, and what they're doing, that's just not Texas. I'm just sorry. That's, so I'm so excited to see you guys get out and start. And it's like I said, we're not against this technology. Let's find its place and put it in its place, right? If it's going to help everybody, then let's do it, right?
Thank you.
Thanks,
Will.
guys.
Yeah, we have one of the largest ports in the world. So this discussion is going to make a huge impact, and you guys should be proud.
Yes, you guys rock. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, if that's it, I want to say, thanks everyone. Thanks for having us, Liz and Priscilla. Thank you everyone for listening. And hopefully people derive some value and can use the information presented. And maybe we can do more of these for other smaller trucking associations across the country and the wider public. All right, guys, way of the road.